I had spoken earlier, which some of you may or may not remember, depending on how you're listening to the videos that I'm sending out, but about my father mentioning friends, the best friends, and so on, calling me up at a kitchen table and telling me that you have possibly, I kept my fingers up at two, and he said, "You're lucky if you have one." But I recall the story of his friend Jots. Jotz. Jotz was I don't know, his compadre, his friend in life since they were kids. And he and Jotz, it was the kind of thing that I told you, that he would be the guy to get up and go to Pete, or Pete would go to him and all. Well, there was an incident that happened where friendship really became the preeminent situation. And he and Jotz were on a wharf, on a pier, whatever you want to call it, and they were fishing in the East River. And as they're fishing, they're catching various fish, and somehow, in catching the fish and unhooking it and whatever, the wood got slippery and Jots fell in the water. When he fell, it was a 10-foot drop, and he fell into the East River. And he yelled up to his friend Pete, "Pete, I can't swim." Well, Pete didn't know that. They never talked about swimming or never went swimming. So Pete didn't know that. So he was yelling for Pete to help him. So Pete yelled down to him, "Jots, listen to me. I want you to do a dog paddle." And a dog paddle is something like putting your two hands in front under your chin and kicking your feet like a frog and kind of making it to that pier, which was maybe, I don't know, I wasn't there, maybe 10 feet away. And Jots finally made it to that pier. And Pete yelled down to me, he said, "You hold on, Jots, hold on, don't let go. I'll be back." He said, "Pete, don't leave me." He says, "I'll be back." Pete ran to his house on 117th Street. I don't know where the pier was, but it must have been 10, 12 blocks. Anyway, Pete got home. His mother was hanging clothes. He saw some clothesline that was there. He got the knife from the kitchen cupboard and he cut whatever, 20 feet or so off of that. Mother said, "What are you doing, Pete? Where are you going?" In Italian. And, "I'll be back." And he ran to Jots where Jots was, and he yelled down, "Jots!" And Jots said, "Yeah, Pete, I'm here." Anyway, long story short, my father, in the meantime, had tied off every foot of that rope. He had double and triple knotted the rope so that, I can't explain it, but every foot apart, Jots would be able to hold on with his feet and grab the knot with his hand and pull himself up. And then when he did, go to the next knot, pull himself up and put his feet on the next knot, and so bring himself up. Jots kept yelling, "Pete, don't let go. Pete." He said, "Jots, I got you." Friendship. Remember that. Friend, true friends. Pete had him. Pete got him up. He tied it off the rope on the pier. Little by little, Jots came up. He got Jots up. Jots was barely breathing. He was frightened and whatever. Of course, being in the water and not being able to swim would frighten anybody. My father got him up and he did whatever he had to resuscitate, and he wasn't out, but enough so that he was able to walk. And I remember that story very dear and close to my heart, because when we talk about friendship, and he remembered that story at the table of him giving me the hand and throwing down those fingers and saying, "You only got one or two." And that was life's evidence to me that his friend was dying. And Pete had to save him. And Pete did. Keep in mind, Pete was maybe 13, 14 years old, if that. But Pete did. Pete did what Pete did. True to his word, true to his friendship, helped his friend, saved his life. Pete didn't think anything of it. Schatz thought the world of it. Pete thought it was just another day. That's the way Pete was. Think about that. That's what Pete and his Petisms called friendship. True, unadulterated friendship. There's a correction I have to make from the book. My wife, after reading it 4 or 5 times, the book, I realized that the story about Pete saving Jots, my wife wrote the opposite, that Jots saved Pete. Before you guys get into reading Pete's Sake, which I hope you will, it's a beautiful, easy read, I'd like to reverse that and say that it was Pete that saved Jots. My wife wrote that Jots saved Pete, and that is incorrect. So I want you just to know that. Again, I thank you. I thank you for listening.